all the highlighting here came.
You know, this, my first job was management.
Welcome. We can go ahead and get started this evening. First off, is there a motion to accept or modify our agenda?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to revise the agenda by removing point 2B.
Is there a second? And that is 1% sales tax for school CIP timeline.
Yes, ma'am.
A second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. All right. Looks like we have lots of students here for our instructional spotlight this evening. Ms. Bragg.
Good evening. Tonight's instructional spotlight will feature Ms. Sadie DeLong, her instructional assistant, Ms. Acosta, and 7th grade students from Warren County Middle School. Ms. DeLong has implemented student-centered math workshop into her daily instructional practice, and tonight, you all will have the opportunity to see this in action as you participate at the posters around the room with the students on some math problems. Appropriate for a budget discussion, right? Math workshop emphasizes open-ended problem solving, small group instruction, and student choice. A portion of the money that Warren County Public Schools received from the Math Innovation Grant that you all accepted at the February meeting will be used to continue the professional development in the math workshop model for our middle school math teachers. So with that, I will turn it over to Dr. Johnston, principal of Warren County Middle School.
Thank you. As Mrs. Bragg mentioned, using vertical spaces to have students participate in thinking tasks in small groups is part of the math workshop model. Our teachers were introduced to the model last year when they participated in a school-based book study led by Darcy Cupp as part of our school improvement plan. At the end of the year, we had 74.38% of our students pass the math SOL test, which was an increase from 70% the prior year. And then compared to all other CIP schools, our Math 7 scores increased from the 52nd percentile to the 69th. So using these vertical spaces, we found that our students are more engaged in math, more willing to participate in solving difficult math tasks. And this evening, you will get to see firsthand how we are promoting student thinking in math. So I'm going to turn the time over to Mrs. DeLong, Mrs. Acosta, Liam, Bryce, Thomas, Brayson, Elizabella, Theron, Autumn, Callie, and Khalil.
Thanks, Dr. Drake. Okay, students, you're coming with me. We're gonna have 4 groups, and at station 4 is Bryce, Callie, Liam. At station 3 is Tommy, Khalil. 2 is Autumn, Theron. 1 is Brayson, Elizabella. Autumn, Theron's at 2. All right, we're all on groups, right? Okay, this is exactly how we do it in class. Don't start looking. I see you looking at this question. We gotta wait. We have to wait for the adults because the adults have to actually work with you guys. So just like in your classroom routines when you're talking things out with each other, you have to allow the adults to participate. They might be a little bit slower with the math.
We will.
Be patient with them and talk out your thinking with them and explain your thinking so they can understand what's going on, okay? Because they haven't done this in some decades. All right? So, adults, here's what you're going to do. You guys are going to go 1 school board member, 1 board of supervisors member. Unless we need to double up, we might have some groups of 3. But if you already see 2 school board members and you're a school board member, you can't go to that station, okay? If you already see 2 board of supervisors, you can't go there. Break. Up now.
All right, let's go.
I reserve the right to rearrange you if need be. Okay. Problems are labeled mild, medium, spicy. You're gonna go right here. You're gonna go right here. You're gonna okay. You're gonna go right here. All right. Problems are labeled mild, medium, spicy. The bottom one, Dr. Martin, excuse me. The bottom one is a ghost pepper spicy. It's extra hot. Some of of my students like to go for the spiciest first, but be accommodating to the adults. Excuse me, group number one. We're gonna start with the mild or the medium, not the hot, okay? Help the adults work their way up. We're gonna do about 15 minutes. Ms. Acosta, Ms. Cup, and I will be going around with red markers. Will indicate if any of your answers are wrong. You may start talking. No calculators. Oh, I see. Use what you're thinking instead of just saying the answers. So we put that on. Is that how you got that? So you think you have an answer for it? What's your answer? And then these kind of- do you want to check this map? They're getting it.
So, you want to do it?
Make sure you read the question very carefully. You have to answer the question yet.
That's good. So you have product is-
Good thinking. Communication.
Group 4 is doing a great job thinking out loud. Did you read the question yet? Okay. So this attraction calculator. Throw on a calculator. Yeah, you're good. You're doing a great job. I like it. I was complimenting you. When are you guys Oh, they're doing the third one. Yeah, each month. I got it wrong when I did it at first. So you guys are doing the medium one? Medium spicy? Yes. Oh, okay.
Is 50 done so far? They just lined up?
I want to know, like, yeah. Well, yeah, you're Number three, June is 14 years old.
Oh, it's not to the end.
How many years?
So 14 to 25.
Oh, so to get to 25, 52 to 28.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Can you tell we corrected our second?
Which number?
So it's 6.
Six sections, 6 whole minutes, and then it's 3 hours. Another half of it. Yeah.
So,
All right, if you haven't already done so, finish up your round. Maybe try one medium if you haven't gone to a medium. We're gonna wrap up in a little less than 3 minutes. Go ahead and try a medium. Let's try to spice it up.
then we tell George.
So how many times? Oh, 4 minutes. So there's 3 hours left from 36 to 39. So if they're doing 1 minute advanced in 6 hours, they're how much advanced in half of that? No, not a third. 30 seconds. Thank you, Bryce. Good job. Half of it.
Okay, we're doing this.
We're doing that.
We'll go back. So, but anyway.
Questions? Yeah. It's 35 denominators to take 10 minutes.
3:09. Go to third. And so it's 20 seconds.
So the end result is actually, it's going to figure out what time each of them has and figure out.
Okay, if one's going fast and one's going slower, so you can add them together, it's a bit further apart.
And I am actually on Friday morning. First watch, so is this is what this first watch.
Yeah, different ones. Like you're seconds up. You're literally seconds I was just literally seconds off. There you go. Yes. Yeah.
We don't want to make it too much.
Oh, they've got 3 down there. They probably already have their first on there. Except the one for the group this year. Thank you.
Stick it on my Chromebook, like they love when we do that.
All right, guys, you guys done a great job.
It's not.
Well, guys, unfortunately, I have to cut you guys off from your conversation. I can email all of you adults about these problems. I'll work on them later.
Number 2, what's the answer? Number 2. Number 2, what's the
Oh.
Thank you, guys. All right. We're dismissed to come back to our families now.
What's number 2?
54, good job. You're a superstar. You're a superstar. Miss Alice, you can accept one on behalf of the adults. You're a superstar. You're a superstar. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Good job, Dan.
I just want to quickly say thank you to Warren County Middle School, to Mrs. DeLong, Ms. Acosta, and most importantly to those 7th grade students that were at your posters with you engaging in some math workshop. And so thank you for your participation, and thank you to the students, your families, and to Warren County Middle. Thank you.
Thank you all for.
It's Irish.
I'm just gonna give a few minutes for our families to leave because I know you want to go home. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Sorry, you wanted to two kids.
How many did you get?
Two.
We have four. I think everyone
No,
should
you
get two.
didn't.
Yes, we did.
You guys got four?
We had a mile, I'm gonna get the six, and
Did
then
you,
another
did you
mile.
take out your calculator?
No, I did not.
Guess who did?
We don't need to tell everything.
Cheater, cheater. Oh, I did.
You would
I was
think you
using
would
the
get a
resources I had.
Better example, but no.
Okay. First, I'd like to thank our Board of Supervisors for joining us for this part of our work session this evening. Looking forward to having some conversations. Our first item is going to be to discuss an MOU where we talk about lump sum funding versus categorical funding. The school division was switched to categorical funding. I believe for FY 2021, it happened after I was first on the board. And so the reason this is coming to our attention this evening, we go through the same process every year with the Board of Supervisors, whether we're on lump sum or categorical funding. We present our budget, we go through the budget conversations that we go through with you all. We, as a school board, approve our budget, goes to you. You know the rest of the story. We get our appropriation, then we either rework the budget or however that goes. So everyone has seen our budget. They know what we're planning on spending. What happens when we are on categorical funding, which is what has been happening for the past several years, if we find that one of our categories, let's say transportation, for example, the cost of fuel is much higher one year than expected. We may need to make adjustments within our budget on the school board to pull funds from technology or facilities in order to cover those bills that we can't avoid paying. When that happens, the item comes to the school board. We have a public discussion about it. We vote on it. We have to then send it to all of you, get it on your agenda. It has to come to your meeting, and then basically, I don't know of a time when you haven't voted to approve it because we still need to run our buses and heat our buildings. And so that can result in a time delay of 2 to 3+ weeks, depending on how our meeting schedules go. So that's really the goal of this part of the conversation this evening. We would still like to see 2 of our main categories in place, which is our CIP and also our textbook fund, so that we have that sort of savings account held within the county as a school sum of money that goes toward our ongoing needs for facilities. And as we all know, textbooks, which that fund has been zero. I'm pretty sure basically since I've been on the board, except during our COVID years when we had some COVID money that we were able to do some textbook purchases. So that's all I have to say about that right now. I'm just looking for input. And
Well, because I've been on both sides, so
Mhm.
maybe I can start the conversation. So I guess when I was the acting school superintendent, I found out there was a reason that they had been categorically funded. Because there was a perception that monies allocated for a specific thing were not used for that specific thing. So I think for me, knowing that outside of textbooks and capital, the general budget for any school division, about 80 to 85% of the funds are personnel. And so that in itself makes it very difficult to move things around because you're not going to move salaries around and do those sorts of things. I would like to suggest maybe to my board, because I've kind of been on both sides now, to do the lump sum funding for the general fund. However, to build, and I hate to use the word trust, for the 2 categories of textbooks and capital, that we share, you share with us, maybe on a monthly basis, what's going in and what's going out. And so the board knows those dollars are going specifically to what they were intended for. So the textbook money will always be there. I already know Troy's put in $200,000 for the Board of Supervisors to fund, knowing that the state's going to give 400 and something because your total bill for textbooks next year is going to be 600. What I think we just need to know that that's all going to be there and it's not going to be used for anything else.
These supervisors and friends.
I'm just telling you.
Sure. I can't take another hit like that.
Does this building fall in this no cell phone category?
So, I appreciate you saying that about the textbooks. And so that is something that I think all of you have noticed about our budget that we adopted this year. We are really trying to put that state funded textbook money. We're not trying, we are hopefully, assuming that our budget gets funded the way we've asked, to put that textbook money that we get from the state into our textbook fund, and try to start correcting that for ourselves as well moving forward. So.
And I think kind of looking back and Mr. Valentine can correct me, maybe the last year, there were maybe fewer than 10 occasions that you actually asked for the transfers.
Right. It's
I mean, it's minuscule, but it takes staff time and it reduces maybe your flexibility, which I understand. But having, because and I say we and the larger we have some capital projects coming up and we have to be absolutely sure that we're going to use the money for some capital projects.
Mrs. Colors, do you have any knowledge of the history, why it went to categorical?
There was money appropriated for the 3 phases of the teacher and staff increases of salaries. There was a study done and it was going to be a 3-phase depending on the years of employment. And phase 1 was done, and you probably remember some of this. And then COVID hit and there was carryover money that we had a number that we were going to give a portion of it back. AS Roads was being done. And I asked the question of, if you don't get all of your carryover, what will you not be able to do? And it was to put the roof and the windows on AS Roads. So I made the motion to appropriate all of the carryover back. That was in May, and then I think around June, the school board, the county administrator at the time came and said that the schools had decided to go ahead and do 2nd and 3rd phase of the pay scale, which concerned me because we were in the middle of COVID and we were holding back our increases to see what the fall revenue numbers were. But the school said, we know we can do it. Fast forward to the next spring, and I had been getting calls from people I used to work with. Why didn't I get my increase? And I'm like, I don't know. You should have gotten it because they did 2nd and 3rd phase. You should have fallen in there. They said they didn't get it. So we fast forward to the next spring, and there's a line item on the budget for instructional assistants and school nurses. And I asked what that dollar amount was for, and I was told because we hadn't given them enough money to do that group. And then there was a little conversation, and I said, well, we appropriated all the money back. So then there was conversation where we held it back. And then the next day I got an email. I said, you can't have it both ways. You either didn't get it or you held it back. The next day I got an email saying, well, you're right, but we still need the money for those 2 categories. And what had happened was that money was used to give everyone a bonus. So they still needed it to get those phases of those people up. And I had been told, and I think several others on the board at the time, that there was a number of school buses needed because every time it was time to order a school bus, that money had to be reallocated to something else for greater need. So at that time, my understanding of what we were doing was categorizing textbooks, buses, and CIP. Now, I didn't realize that by picking those three categories, we were not lump summing. I thought that was just a savings account for those three so that we knew you had money for textbooks, buses, and CIP improvements. Wasn't until really this came up that I realized that we had categorized you across the board, which in my eyes, that was not the intent. But that's how we got here.
Those three categories have been essentially empty this whole time since they were created, because unless the Board of Supervisors appropriates money to go into those categories, we don't have money in there. So
Which
they
we-
were created, but
Well, they were funded because we used, we bought 8 buses.
Well, so we've purchased
Yeah.
buses, but I mean, we've
There
purchased
hasn't
them and they've
been
left. It's
money
been
to
an
put
in
back
and
in.
out. It's not been a savings account.
Right, because there hasn't been enough carryover money to do that. But that was the original intent. And
That was a longer version of what I had the understanding of, which was that money had been budgeted for buses, but was used for bonuses.
But what I was told was the money, and that, we bought the buses.
Yeah, that was before I was on the board. So we're talking about something
Yeah.
that was before 2020. If we're
But
talking
then,
about-
at any rate, the way that this is structured now, it's not, there's no crossing over of capital with operations. Is that right? As you understand?
Should not be personnel money.
Right.
Yes, correct.
No, we're talking about our operating. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what we suggested is keeping the categories of CIP, which buses would fall into, and the other one would be textbooks, and then lump sum funding, the remainder would be. And then doing, as Dr. Martin suggested, a monthly sort of report that we already do, a monthly report that we send to the school board folks. We could just include the county administrator on that, and they could he or she could forward that to the supervisors. And if needed, we could come to a supervisor meeting on a periodic basis just to clarify or answer any questions on the funding.
And what are the two of these things? They're two different ones? or
Yeah, my mistake. So we have two versions.
We think the small print is
The smaller printed one is the corrected version. So my apologies.
So the ones that are on board docs, just for those watching.
Yeah,
are
we'll
not the
correct.
ones-
We will update those
Okay.
tomorrow.
Right. It's over here. Yeah.
there's nothing drastically different, but
Okay,
Right.
That's
Yeah.
the one that we're.
I think my only other question about that is when we have those two accounts, the CIP and textbooks, will that be something that Rob can easily keep access on to see what's in and out of that to make sure that both ends are using it for what it's intended? Are there any questions, comments, concerns, changes anybody would like to make on this? Strong.
When you do get, and I don't want to get into the nuts and bolts of that because it's kind of your thing, but when you do your budget, how many categories do you got? As personnel, I mean, in other words, how many other categories would be in that lump sum? Just out of curiosity.
They're actually listed here. I think there's 8 total though, right, Rob? But they're like a little
Yes.
abbreviated in our sheet, but there's 8 total.
I was just curious.
These are designated by the state. They're not ones that we make up or have really any flexibility with, but they're designated by the state and code.
Yeah, and that's them.
Believe I've got the list of 8 categories. So I'll just read them so everyone's aware. Administration, attendance and health, pupil transportation, operations and maintenance, cafeteria, facilities, debt service and fund transfers, and technology.
Instruction was the huge one at the top.
Instructions at the.
Instruction, sorry.
Yeah.
Big one.
Those aren't in this MOO.
No, he has it pulled up on.
But there's like,
Well, they are
At the
listed.
bottom.
They're here.
but there's only 6.
It's only 6 on the page.
Right,
There's
so it
only
doesn't
6
have
on
the
the paper.
debt service. and the,
Yeah.
The food service.
Because we're
That's
handling
what you're
your
missing.
Yeah, and those are just the categories that were in the budget advertisement in
Okay.
June for the whole county.
We need to edit this then and make sure those are all 8 in there. So there's the 6.
What says included but not limited to?
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
It what?
It says including but not limited to.
Oh.
I mean, we're
Well,
missing 2, and
It
there's
make
the
more
2 that.
sense when you
I think
have
it's the
all.
state reporting standards, right? That's what you put on this, on MOU or the state ones that they want. But
Should be.
It's the 6 on this one: instruction, administration, attendance, and health, pupil transportation, operations and maintenance, technology services, and contingency or reserve funds. Those that are covered.
So I think what we would, this is an example of what the school board would allocate funds to, which we said certainly we would have CIP and we would have the other one that we mentioned that we would maintain would be textbooks as the 2 that we wanted to make sure had specific categories for. But as far as categorical funding, in terms of instruction, administration, attendance, and health, we don't typically sort our funds, and I think Mr. Ballantyne could probably maybe share a little bit of light if you want to come forward in terms of those specific state categories. It's almost sort of double work in terms of how we would budget it and then how we would show it in the categorical standpoint.
Yes, and I guess where we would be able to separate it would be, we have these categories and they're not all listed there on this list. There are 7 or 8 of them that the state has. The thing is, we have different funds then. We have the operating fund, which is by far the largest and one that we're most familiar with and deal with on a daily basis. We have a cafeteria fund, which is self-sustaining. The money we receive from either payments we receive for food that's sold or for reimbursements from the state and federal government. So that one is in what's called 65,000, that category, which is school nutrition services, basically. That's a separate fund. Then we have the textbook fund. Now, here's the thing. The textbook fund, anything we'd spend out of it would be under the very first category, which is instruction. So I think we need to look at it from a standpoint of, in the operating budget, if you were willing to fund us lump sum, realizing there will be in the operating budget, the vast majority of it will be instruction, which also will be over in the textbook fund. And I would recommend that maybe you fund us lump sum, if you will, in the operating budget, lump sum in the cafeteria fund budget, which it's all 65,000. We don't move money from one category to the other in it. It's got to all be for that. Then in the textbook fund, if you would fund us a certain amount and designate that must be spent in category 61,000, which quite honestly, the textbook fund, all we can buy out of it are textbooks or things that qualify as textbooks. And then when we get to the capital improvement fund, that's in a category 66,000, which is probably unique to that fund, just as food service is unique to the food service fund. So you could fund us categorically for 66,000, which is facilities, and also for that particular fund. So that's all that would be spent out of that fund. The school buses get a little bit tricky. They come out of 63,000, the category, which is pupil transportation. And what we've done recently is fund the school buses out of the capital improvement fund, or the bus fund. It's sort of been intermingled, and that. So you may need to, if you want to designate money to us that would be used just for school buses, it would need to be designated to the 63,000 category, and maybe designated through the capital fund for something other than facilities. It would have to be reported. We have to report it to the state differently as an expenditure for pupil transportation, as opposed to just for facilities. They separate the two. So I'm sure I've just confused you, but again, it would be at a operating fund, if that could be done lump sum. And that's predominantly instruction, and 86% of that is for salaries and benefits for our employees. And then in the other funds, by the fund an amount to it, but also the category that it has to be spent in, whether it's food service, textbooks, or capital, capital being split maybe between buses and buildings, so to speak. Be glad to try to answer any questions you might have.
Just as a comment, this MOU doesn't reflect what you just said.
Yeah,
So,
I think we need to probably add, well, we need to add in and list all the categories. Quite honestly, the one that says contingency or reserve funds, we may have used that one year way back in the past, but our budgets don't have money for contingencies just to set aside to have money just in case something happens. But it's one that the state recognizes. Debt service is also another one. But again, the county has picked up all of our debt service, so it's not funded through our budget. But again, we need to recognize it, because there may come the day where the school board is asked to pay debt service, and we need to have that recognized. So this list here is definitely not all inclusive of the ones the state recognizes in their code.
just as a general comment, I guess this isn't ready because you just mentioned four super categories. And in principle, I think that's fine. There is one question though that has come up the last couple of years, and that is when there are unfilled positions, they're funded, there's money there, but they're not, no, I'm sorry, not unfunded positions, unfilled positions. So there's money appropriated, but nobody working in the position. And then potentially that money is being, say, instead of paying a teacher, because it's not a filled position, is used for one of these other things. And that, as a supervisor, you do a budget, and you say the instructional budget is X, and that's, some number of teachers, but in fact, there's fewer teachers than that, but there's money for X teachers. So what's being done with the money?
Well,
that
often
has come up in the last couple of years.
Often,
so how would that be handled in this situation?
Well, often what happens in a case like that, we can't find a person to fill that particular position, but the need doesn't go away. So we either have maybe a long-term sub in it, so that comes out of our substitute budget, which is coming back in-house, so that'll be paying salaries to our employees next year, as opposed to the past several years where it's been paid to a third party that provided that service. But in either case, it's an expense to fill a need that didn't go away just because we couldn't find a teacher. Or in some cases, we'll have to pay a teacher to teach an additional class, particularly at the secondary level, during their planning period. So that cost eats up part of it. Bottom line is, those ways of doing it probably are less expensive than the salary and benefits of hiring a teacher for the whole year. What happens to that money? That money comes back to the county at the end of the year.
Well, that's what you would expect to happen, but does it potentially get used for something else? In other words, is it in this category They could be.
What could happen, well, let's put it this way. If we're categorically funded as we are now, and let's say we had a really cold January like we just did, and our utility bills are higher than what we had budgeted for, we got to pay to keep the heat on. So if we had money over in that category, instruction, and needed to move it over to 64,000 operation and maintenance, categorically funded, we would come to you and say, we've had these unexpected or higher than predicted cost in utilities, and we've saved some money over here on salaries. Will you give us permission to move that money so we can pay the electric bill to the town or whatever? If we were lump sum funded in the operating budget, then our school board would have the authority to transfer that money at the request of the superintendent.
Yeah, I understand.
So, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, we knew this wasn't gonna be ready, but we wanted to see what your thoughts are, what everybody's thoughts are, what their inputs are, so we can have it ready, hopefully to bring to our board and then bring to your board.
My thoughts personally are that it's a good idea for school board to have some more flexibility. And you know, what just transpired in this meeting was that categories were defined, which actually aren't in here. So that's good. You know, just that knowing that instruction is the biggest dollar amount, right? So from a from a little bit of a loss of oversight, this is just, this is a little bit of a loss of oversight of the board, less micromanaging if it's considered micromanaging. But in terms of like some of the prior situations, it just, there was an uncertainty about, are there too many positions? Is that money being used for other stuff when we think it's being used for instruction? Was it, in other words, was there an over? That was the thing, and I that was concerning, to whether it was true or not, I don't even know, because we could never ascertain. So that's the only comment I have. It's not a killer, but it's a thing to look at,
I know Dr. Wright's been working really hard at just seeing what positions have been left
Well, yeah,
open as he's
yeah.
trying to like crunch down the budget this
right. And it
season,
looks like
so.
there's some attrition in the budget, so that's very encouraging. I spoke to him personally to thank him for that. That's all I have.
So I think from our side, we'll just be trying to bring this maybe to our April meeting more polished and ready for our board.
I'm comfortable with the 3 categories, if you all are comfortable with that. I mean, I know the board likes a little, especially on the CIP thing, like some of these rules and stuff where, they're gonna be an extra big budget item. So it'd be nice to have those broke out, just so we know that everybody knows what that money was for, where it came from, and what we're gonna do with it. But I don't want to micromanage the school budget because I got enough to do. So I'd appreciate.
Just to maybe give you a little more confidence in doing that too, and still having, an understanding of what's going on with the schools. We currently, every time we run a check register, and that's twice a month, and our board will approve one tonight, and we run 2 payrolls a month. I send to the county finance director and her staff a detailed listing showing every check and which category it was in, so they can track it within their system also. If we went to lump sum funding, I see no reason to stop doing that. Even though you may not be as concerned about the categories, you would still be getting the information. And if you see or they see something that looks way out of line as far as that category, why are you spending so much in this one? The details are right there for them to see too. So, hopefully that helps with that too. And again, I see no reason to stop doing it. It's a pretty straightforward process, but it keeps us all on the same page. And quite honestly, when it comes time for the audit for this fiscal year, things are going to be a lot better than they have been the last 2 years as far as everybody being on the same page and everybody's numbers coinciding. So.
Thank you. Okay. If there's nothing else on that, we removed our, I haven't refreshed, but we removed our 1% sales tax for this evening. So that brings us up to the carryover funds MOU. So I think we talked about this at the last joint session that we had with you all. Historically, we've, at the end of the year, once the county audit has been complete, the school board has gone before the Board of Supervisors and basically given what our list of capital improvements project, basically one-time expenditures, because we can't use that, of course, in our operating budget because it's not money we'll get year after year. We've asked for it. I can't think of a time that we haven't received it back. And so we haven't gotten it now for a few years because of the county audit situation. And so we just are looking to see, can there be an agreement where each year we know that those carryover funds will come back to, in this particular case, our CIP fund that we just spoke about. We have a huge list of capital improvement needs in the school division. Our carryover funds have gotten a little bit smaller each year. And so I don't think talking about any huge chunk of money, but somewhere in the few $100,000 range. So if we knew that was coming back into our fund, that would be some money that we could count on for our capital improvements. Thoughts on that?
Are you saying that you have more needs than there is money?
It seems that way. I think so.
No, I know in my tenure there previously that we always did that. We appropriate the money. I think it was designated for certain categories. And if you needed to make some switch from the other, you would come to us. Usually we did. I think I understand. Especially I think it was said about instructional. It could be by the time we meet, you meet, whatever. Well, the fuel, I guess. And I think what happened was, what did happen basically, we would appropriate funding all based on that. And then at the end of the year, whether it was, maybe you had an abnormally warm winter, so you had money left over with the fuel or whatever. And then the thing I think Mr. Valentine could probably agree or whatever, confirm that the money comes from the state, get change based on whatever student population. So I guess you could want to add more. And what I remember every time you all came back to us, and I think that was an incentive too, for you all to try to save where you can, knowing that at the end of the fiscal year, if you had money left over, you had to turn it back to us, but we turn around and give it back to you, capital improvement project. I think most of those, a lot of those, like the renovations at E.S. Morrison, at West Jeffries, wherever it was needed. And then there again, that's what we were able to do along those lines. So it really worked out well. And like I said, it gives you all incentive, but it also helps take care of the smaller capital improvement. I guess my time's done.
That was the buzzer.
Did I hear you correctly? These audit delays have prohibited the school from getting our carryover budget back the last 2 years?
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Is the chart that we had gotten from Mr. Valentine, looks like the last year that we got carryover funds was for the 22-23 school year. So
FY 23 was our last one.
23, 24, 24, 25.
And now this year.
Gotten nothing.
But you've also, it's been a very parsimonious time, right? So you've been on really tight budget, so you probably,
It's probably not
it's probably not a lot.
that much.
Probably not that much. So that's just, that's just a comment. I'm not.
Right.
It has been delayed, but it probably hasn't been much because the budgets have been extremely
It's
tight.
probably not enough to do all of the roof replacements that we need by any stretch of the imagination, but it would be a chunk.
Right, so it's not like we're waiting on an audit and as soon as we get the audit, there's gonna be a couple $1 million.
No.
That's just
No, we're
it's
not expecting that.
Couple 100,000.
Yeah, a
per
couple
year.
100,000 probably.
So in working on the budget, which we presented tomorrow, you are, I think, right now looking at $7.1 million to replace your roofs. We're looking at over 3 million. So I hope to present something to start addressing that tomorrow a little bit. Because the more it rains, it's compromising our structures, yours and ours. And we've just got to do something, I think, sooner rather than later. So there are no promises because the board, my board, I used to be your board, but my board doesn't really know what's in the budget yet. But I will tell you, we have worked tirelessly to look how we can address the roofs in our county, because it's concerning. When we had the big rain the other day, I asked our maintenance guys, can you tell me how many buckets are in our county buildings? And what we worry about a lot is the courthouse, because if the courthouse leaks and the judges are upset, could be something very different. So I think we may have a plan, but we are hoping that I'm hoping that your carryover money goes to capital so we can start roofs immediately.
How many roofs make up the 7.1?
Almost about one. I didn't bring that with me.
I don't have it with me either, but
It's a lot.
but I know when we met at Hilda, it was, I mean, obviously
Well-
Hilda's roof was not 7.1, it was.
Right, so you have in your capital
Your
plan,
capital plan over the next couple of years.
right,
Okay.
but you have, I think,
There's
Hilda
some
J,
coming up in the next couple of years.
right, Hilda J is for next year with your capital program and three buses.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you have a list of all the roofs
I asked for it.
and you have it.
I just want to be
and their
sure
plans.
we know.
I've
And their
got that in
dates.
my binder at home. I did not bring it with me, but,
So as we're looking at these numbers and all the work coming up and everything, I think I look at things a little bit different. I think something that we tend to overlook is we say schools, but when you look at that in a dollar amount, we've got probably close to somewhere between $200 and $300 million worth of real estate that we're responsible for. These buildings don't belong to this board or your board, or it belongs to the community and to the taxpayers. And we're sitting here because they're trusting us to take care of it. And with that kind of money that they have invested, 42,000 people have an investment into our schools. I think it's very important that we keep in mind that that's a $200 to $300 million number. That's not a little number. And on top of that, it takes a tremendous amount of money to maintain these things. I don't think you can run from that, hide from that. And the other thing we should be looking at as well is that we're leaving hundreds of students out without some sort of an education because we're behind in our VOTEC program. And we've got decisions coming up, when we have to turn away 100 students, we're not doing our due diligence of providing them the education that they may want. And these buildings are going to cost money, but just as the roofs, they are a necessity as well. I don't think we can look beyond that. We've kicked this can down the road. The schools have been flat funded. We've been unable to do any kind of large maintenance fixes. And our time lapse between roofs are getting closer and closer to where we don't just have one a year to do, we're gonna need 2 or 3 a year to do. And that's a big number. I can't, I- it doesn't matter what transpired 2005, 8, when these buildings were approved to be built. Apparently, at the time when they were approved, we should have forecasted that we had the money to take care of them. And here we are in 2026, and it's almost getting hard to change a light bulb. These things aren't something that we can box up, put on a shelf and say, hey, we'll take care of them later. It just don't work that way. We've got them. It don't matter what the debt service is. That's just here. It's not gonna go away. It's a service that's gotta be paid. But on the flip side of that is we've got to maintain these buildings. Well, that's just where the leather meets the road. And I just think everybody needs to keep that in mind. I know it's a big decision. It's a lot. To me, I've lived here for 56 years, and in my opinion, our we have outgrown, our infrastructure's outgrown our income. I've seen it. We're behind on taxes, and I'll say it, I'm not afraid to. There needs to be a significant tax increase. I can't help it. It's just what it is. And fire and rescue needs more, sheriff's department needs more, school needs more. We're employing over 500 and some people here. It's not a small business. We're largest employer in the county, and we're almost treated like we're the smallest. And I just think it's time that this county's gonna have to step up and do it. I don't believe there's a handful of citizens in this community that would say, no, we're not, I don't want to pay extra for my schools. I don't see it. I don't hear it. And I just think that needs to be thought about.
On this MOU as written, in the section 1 purpose, one thing that concerns me is that it says that a fiscal arrangement under which a portion of unexpended funds remaining with the schools may be transferred. I feel like that's too loosey-goosey of language. This is our money that we didn't spend. And if we're going to, the way we build a savings account to replace roofs and improve the schools, we need to be able to count on that. And I would like to see that switch to the entirety of what we've saved shall be transferred.
Yeah, and I think you just followed up basically with what George said with the roof situation. We're going to end up in the same situation where we're in a hole with needing all the buses to be replaced at the same time. And we've been slowly getting much better with the buses. Over the past 5, 6, 7 years, we've purchased buses and we're trying to get on a trend. But when we keep pushing back big improvements, then we're going to be hit all at once, all 1 year. And so the purpose of these first 2 items this evening is to truly establish that savings account, that CIP fund, and then figure out how we're actually going to get money into it every year. Because again, it's great to have that account, but if we're not putting money in it, then it's not doing us any good.
What was the typical transfer amount? Would have been
She has it, the
So-
chart.
in the past.
This is what Mr. Valentine put together for us. So 2018-19, 546,821. 2019-2020 was nothing. 2020 to 2021, 267,200. 22 223, 973,000.
Okay, no, 21-22 was 973
Oh, yeah, I'm
thousand.
crossing over.
Okay,
And
and
then the last one was 215,477. So if I remember correctly, what we were talking about with the roof with Hilda, was it 600,000 to replace that roof?
Yeah.
So if we had in fact gotten back 2.5 years of carryover funds, there's that roof. And then that roof is good to go for another 25 plus years. And if we had continued on the schedule, getting the money back that we should have been getting back, because it's our money to begin with, we wouldn't be stuck in this.
We're just trying to be fiscally responsible and not have to come to you for every little dime. We'd like to say we're being proactive and not reactive.
Well, we already came to you for this money because this is money that was budgeted to us in the
Right.
first place. And we
right, yeah,
didn't spend
I think that the reason that there hasn't been any in the last couple of years is because there's not been an audit. I mean,
There
we just
hasn't
don't,
been
we
an
didn't even,
audit, right.
can't, it's not because we didn't want to, it's because
Right.
we don't know.
So this is kind of just housekeeping
This
stuff,
is
I
like,
think, to
this
see
is-
that we can count on it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Well-
how it's currently written is how it's happening now.
we're just trying to
we normally
formalize it.
have this, but now we're trying to say, no, we are gonna get it back.
Mhm.
Instead of it being, it's always been an option that we may or may not get it back. We come ask for it and say, please, sir, can we have some more? And if we-
But not more, just what
Just what we had, right.
what we already asked
Can
for.
we have
So
what
we
you
can't plan
promised?
for anything in the future. And so we put money in the CIP fund, then we spend it, then our CIP fund goes away, and we have nothing in savings. So
Yeah.
it's more just
I
letting
I
us
agree
give
with
power
it.
back to the states, so to speak.
I agree with it in principle.
I think that big year, like the 900 and some thousand, that was probably COVID funds that were over.
COVID,
Like, I
Oh,
don't think that
okay.
was like, we actually asked for like this massive overage. I think probably that was that year, just hearing you read it. Cause that wouldn't be typical.
I don't have a problem with it in principle. I think, Ms. Salem's asked a pretty poignant question is why does it say a portion?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, because maybe the portion then we decide is 10% and maybe we won't. I mean, I obviously, to play the devil's advocate on the county side, there may be some really pressing need as well. There's pressing needs everywhere. So, but in principle, I agree. There's a consistent theme running through all this, and that is consistency.
Yeah.
It's the regularity of the contribution toward the capital improvement that's been missing. That I think, in principle, I agree completely. Doing something every year is better than discretionary. A board that gets in a pinch says, "Well, we can't do it." So I agree with this. I think there's a possibility it could be wordsmithed a little more in that
Yeah.
region.
Yes.
From my point of view, I'm not obviously not speaking for any other supervisors. I think getting strength and getting strength in as many avenues of consistently depositing towards capital is sensible, and it relieves. Frankly, it relieves the board of supervisors of discretion on an annual basis of are we or are we not going to fund capital?
I mean, don't be fooled. We'll still be asking as part of our budget every year for more money because it'll never fund everything we need.
It's
this will help.
But it's a matter of consistency.
Yes, this
Yeah.
will help.
But it's a lot less money.
Okay, any other comments? So we'll bring this one to our April 8th meeting as well with any edits that we come up with before, but I like the removing the portion and changing it to shall for sure.
Well, you can have, none of my colleagues have said anything. I noticed.
Well, I'm giving the
uh,
opportunity.
Yeah, great to hear from you.
Well, I'm not opposed per se, because that's traditionally what's been done. The only time I could see a concession in that, like the year with the COVID, you got almost $1 million. And that's to say we were doing a little better job of keeping it up with your capital improvements. What if somehow you didn't need the whole $1 million?
It'd be a crazy world and
Be a
we'd all
crazy
love it.
world.
We'd be so
Or
happy.
suppose you wanted
We'd
to
be
spend it
loving
on something else for the schools, say it went back over to textbooks or some computer upgrade thing. If it's gotta be spent on CUP and you write it that way, you don't have the ability to move it either. You might think about that, say, hey, we really don't need a bus. We can put this roof off for 5 years. But part of that textbook is electronic now. So if if you left it, I mean, I still want to go to the schools, but you might not lock yourself down to where it has to be capital improvements only. If it was something other category out of those 8 that was not in the CUP category, but it was still something for the schools. So you may be a little careful with the language that way. If another COVID happened, we have this amount of money, we need a roof, it's 600,000, we got another 300,000, but hey, guys, we could really be nice to spend it on this, and that's not in capital improvements. But if you make it so regulatory that it's got to be in that category, so just for your own protection, you may just that may be a legal question. It's over my pay grade.
I do
Well, this
think
might
it's-
come to the
yeah.
wordsmithing too. Sorry to cut you off, but we do have on number 6, the authorized uses of funds, and we do put technology and infrastructure in there, school renovations, replacement of buses, school safety and security improvement. So we do have a more comprehensive
You don't
list
think anything
for
would
the
be out of the
carryover.
CIP list that you'd ever spend money on?
I think that list is so expensive that we would be looking at
Okay.
long past all of our time.
Right. And it does say that we'll look at this every 5 years. And so I think if in 5 years we found ourselves in a,
If you're comfortable.
Well, the main thing is that you're using it for one-time expenditure.
correct.
Because you may not have it the next year.
Right.
So that's what's more important.
Mhm.
Technology, I mean, we're going through some of that too, as far as updating programs or whatever like that. Obviously, you have your annual maintenance costs, but it's expensive. They were, I guess, something with finance and the treasurer's office, stuff like that. Like I said, the initial cost is up there. And that could be something possibly through CIP. But again, the ongoing annual cost, you don't want to use that surplus funds and then have to make it up the next year too, which you understand.
Right. No, appreciate it. Any other comments on this one? Okay. So you probably see the theme. So our last item is the meals tax resolution conversation. Our previous board in October of 2025 put forth a resolution basically where we were asking the Board of Supervisors to start putting the meals tax revenue that's collected every year into, again, our capital improvements fund. I think we noticed that that hasn't been a public discussion with the Board of Supervisors, either between us jointly or separately with the Board of Supervisors. So tonight, we just want to bring this up as sort of our next way of funding that CIP account. So in 2003, when the voters of Warren County approved the referendum that authorized this meals tax to be collected, it was with the revenues collected from the tax to be used solely for public school capital improvement projects. So it's pretty clear what the intent of the money was going to be collected for when the taxpayers voted on it. And so we would just like to see that money that's collected every year as the meals tax go into our CIP account. And that's more money that we can count on funding that balance every year.
It's not currently going there.
It's not.
Where is it going to?
It's currently going into the county's general fund and you guys are paying our debt service. So
That was kind of the
it's,
trade.
well,
No.
that's not what the intent of the referendum was.
I can say it's not the intent of the referendum, but a previous board must have thought that was.
It,
It's
What basically happened was when this first started, the schools got to 100% of the meals tax out there. And I think it did go to CIP. And then somewhere along the line with the town out there,
2018.
what,
2018.
before that, but anyway, they had the whatever, there was an issue because the town was able to collect through their pilot fees the meals tax. Some of the restaurants out there took the court and said the town can't, because the other property tax, the business property, whatever, that could be passed through. But meals tax could. So the court said you can't collect the meals tax on the board for the town. So that went by the wayside. So there again, talked, still think it's same, that anyway, we talked to town, and we made reach an agreement with the town that we would give them 30% of the meals tax in exchange for them continuing on to provide water and annexing and all that stuff. What we did at that time, we gave schools the total amount of the meals tax, and we took the 30% for this town out of our general fund. But the schools did get it somewhere in the last 4 years. And I understand where they came from. I'm not saying I agree, but the thought process was county's paying millions of dollars in debt service. Here's your capital improvement right there. So we need to reevaluate that and see which way we go. Yeah, I would say just a sidebar. Ideally, it'd be nice to be able to take that money from the meals tax and pay debt service and go out and get a bond. But right now we have no bond rate. And then that way you could get a lot of capital improvements, the roofs and stuff like that done all at once. And then that, whatever it is, $1 million to go, I don't know how much a bond, but right now a bond is worth it from our standpoint, because until we get the audits completed and their bond rating back, we can't really go out for a bond. At least that's my understanding.
I would like to thank you for saying that originally you were paying the equivalent of the 30%, because Ms. Salen's actually, yeah, she dug that up today, and that is how the agreement was originally written. It was still written that the schools would get 100% of the meals tax revenue collected, but the county would pay the town the equivalent of 30%. So it wasn't, they were subtracting 30% from what the schools were supposed to be getting. So it sounds like it was originally done the correct way based on the 2018 settlement. It's just fallen by the wayside a little bit.
Could you, with your historical knowledge, could you give clarification as to who, as of now, is currently paying the meals tax? Because we've been working on this for almost 2 years now, and nobody has been able to answer that question for us. It started out with this referendum that says that all restaurants, which include grocery stores who have a deli counter, gas stations that have a deli counter, every restaurant in the entire county was supposed to be paying this meals tax. Then at some point in time, the town started collecting the meals tax in all, so town restaurants, their meals tax no longer comes to the county, it is kept by the town. And then somewhere it seems to have changed to where the numbers we're getting are showing that we are only counting up the amount of meals tax in the corridor, which means that your areas in Linden and in Fork District, nowhere else seems to be, we're not getting that accounted for at all anymore. So I think we need to find out who exactly is supposed to be paying this meals tax. According to the referendum, it seems pretty clear that it's the entire county should be paying this meals tax and should be coming towards to the schools. But now it's being used in different ways. So the town keeps theirs from their restaurants. The county's not getting that anymore. Are we still collecting it in Linden? Are we not collecting it anywhere else outside of the corridor?
I think any business that serves processed food paying the meals tax outside the town limits. Again, the town, we have no control. The town, they didn't have to, I don't think they still have to. They don't have to go to a referendum per se. They can just institute it. I think they charge 4%. I think with towns and cities, they can go up to maybe 6 or 7%. But no, that's all goes to the town. That was never intended to go to county coffers. As far as that goes, I can look into it to find out, but I mean, that's a valid point to look into. Like I said, we always think about the quarter because that's where the bulk of the money comes from. And I think in the 2003 referendum or whatever, the voters voted to institute a meals tax in the county with that money to go towards school capital improvement. So we can look into it, but that's a good point.
I've been trying to obtain a list of all entities that pay the meals tax in the county. And it's been extreme. Actually, I haven't gotten it. It's been a very trying process, like pulling teeth. And I can't get the tooth out. You know, it's like trying to get that information. And I know there's a certain protection of information. You can't divulge, businesses don't have to divulge information. The county can't divulge information that would reveal how much money a business makes. But I've clearly separated my request to say, I just want to know what entities are paying the meals tax within the county. And it's been difficult
But
which
what
is
you
to say,
could do,
I don't have the answer.
I don't mean to interrupt, what you could do is go out and eat at every restaurant outside of town, look at your receipt, because it will show it on there with the meals taxes.
Yeah,
And then you
yeah.
have that down.
Hoping for a little quicker answer.
Well,
Yeah.
so I actually started doing that. I actually had that idea. And funny thing is, when I eat in Frederick County restaurants, it lists it out, this much meals tax, this much sales tax. That's not how it's done in a lot of the places around here, so I've obtained no new
Not a lot of
information that I didn't already know,
On your
so.
receipt, it should say how much your food was, and then what the sales tax is, and what they may be doing is lumping it in.
It's
Say the
all-
Sales tax is
Yeah.
5.3, so if you see 9.3 on there, you know you're paying the meals tax.
I think when I Googled that
Who?
one time just to see, and it's 5.3, but 1% of it. It's really
That's
four,
normal
it's
state
really
tax.
4.3 plus 1% for the meals tax as a standard. And I don't know if we're getting anything additional above that, like we said, the towns or whatever usually add more. I'm not sure I haven't got into the part of doing the research on that myself on the county level, but.
So the town charges 4%, we can't take it back and add that for restaurants in town.
Right.
And I think like what you said, I don't remember the exact percentage, but the 1% of the state tax goes back to localities, I think, based on school age population. So the county, I think, I remember, I mean, I can't remember yesterday sometimes, but I think that 1%, half of it goes to the county, the rest of it is divided between school age population in town and county. I think that's something we're looking at.
There is, and Dr. Jameson and I have had ongoing conversations. There's a code section of Virginia, I think it's 15.1-3, entitled Secrecy of Information, which prevents the Commissioner of Revenue from divulging who's paying tax.
Oh,
Meals tax.
no, excuse me. It prevents the Commissioner of Revenue from divulging the amount paid and connecting that information, not who
It does say
paid.
names in the code section.
Right, but it's this, okay, I don't think this is the time for this, but there's nothing that prevents a list of names who pay taxes. What is protected is the amount that an entity pays.
I think that's a legal interpretation, what I'm not qualified to do.
Yeah.
But I think
It's
it clearly says names, and we've had that conversation, but it says names. I've been thinking, is there another way to get at this? Maybe business licenses, because I think that's an easier way.
Yeah.
Have people who have business licenses and those that sell food, and you can connect that up.
Maybe just ask the treasurer the question directly, or the businesses outside the corridor.
It's
paying
been-
meal
Well,
tax.
it's like going to eat everywhere. I mean, you just should go to your treasurer, your Commissioner of Revenue and say, give me a list of entities that pay meals tax, not connected to how much they pay, just that pay it.
Well, if they not,
Have you asked?
I have asked,
I dug into it a little.
We could at least ask her to walk us through the process of how she enforces compliance.
well,
And I do know that she's allowed to publish delinquent.
Yeah.
provisions.
that's not
So
much information.
It's not, but it's
That's not
something.
information.
You could also, business licenses is one way, or the health department, because if they have if they're preparing food to serve for immediate consumption, they probably need to be inspected by the health department. So that's your list of restaurants that should be paying. And then you could give the list to the treasurer and say, go through this list. If you're not collecting from these guys, start.
But we do know, because I think we've sent that to Dr. Jameson, the amount of delinquent taxes from the commissioner. We know the amount.
On the meals tax
Yes.
specifically?
Yes,
So you know how much you're collecting and you know how much you're missing.
correct.
So are we collecting
But you
meals
don't
tax?
know that you're
in
collecting.
He's saying he
Linden?
knows how much is delinquent.
No, that,
Or are we only collecting it in the corridor?
so she cannot even give me the names.
Well, I don't need names, I need areas, like where's.
I don't know that it was broken down into areas. I'd have to go back and look at that particular one before I forwarded it to Dr. Jameson. But I just remember I got an accounting of the delinquent taxes that had not been paid. So I know the number. And I'm looking to, Rich, was it like 30-some thousand? 34,000?
It wasn't a significant.
Yeah.
figure.
Out of like 1.
Trouble is that an aggregate number like
Yeah.
that is really not what this is about.
Mhm.
What the question originated is, what is the total body of entities that pay into this meal tax? If you, I'm not gonna argue about it here, but at some point it will be determined, that it's legal for us to get a list of people who pay the tax. I'm confident of that. And the point is, giving an aggregate list of what's paid and how much is delinquent isn't the same as having a known. For example, I'll just give an example because this refers to anything ready for human consumption. So just as I thought it was a simple oversight matter, a gas station that's selling pizza, maybe they only sell 2 pizzas a day, but I mean, that is food ready for human consumption. And that's, you just not knowing. I didn't know I was trying to get in Fort Knox, asking for this list of
If they can't really give that list, like I say, we might go out the other way and ask the question backwards. Or we collecting meals tax outside the corridor? And then, the other thing you might be able to do, if we got the total, if she's allowed to give you this is how much meals tax you should be collecting, then maybe you could ask her how much of it comes out of the corridor and you'd see what the difference was, and you might be able to help isolate it down.
do you see what we're doing here?
You're not gonna get that list.
don't
I've done ask myself and you're not getting it.
Well, we'll see.
Good luck.
Yeah.
You're trying to get your
Thanks.
list because you're just trying to confirm that everyone that's supposed to be paying the
It's
meal
a
tax is paying
a
the
simple
meal tax,
oversight,
right?
man. Yeah, I mean, it's a broad-based tax, and is it being applied broadly? If does anybody have that list? And actually one of the things that came up is the software is so ancient that report can't even be generated. That's another thing that came back. So
Well, and most importantly,
Mhm.
100% of it is supposed to be coming to us.
Mhm.
And it hasn't been coming to us. And the voters voted for it to come to us. And so at least the voters need to know, hey, when you vote for a referendum and you're willing to pay taxes to support the children of this community, guess what? It's not coming to
Well,
the children.
Yeah, I do think it's important to make good on that intention before we try and have another referendum for another tax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only that, I do think, if this was done properly until a few years ago, we have every reason to look and having that money be sequestered and go, maybe it has to pass through the general fund, but it goes with an itemization of some sort to justify the numbers that it goes straight to the school. And if we have to pay the town 30% to prevent annexation or to keep the water going, then we have to write that as a separate check, and it's just over and above. We have to figure out how to make that work. But if we want to do a 1% potential, I know we took that off the agenda, but
Right.
if there's another referendum in the future, we have to get it right for the previous one, and so there's no shell games going on. And then secondly, for the next time around, if there is a referendum, we set up all those guardrails very loud and clear and make sure everyone has an agreement and understands how that's going to work.
Agree.
Agree with that.
Mr. Carter, you mentioned 4 years ago this changed. Is that?
It happened when I wasn't there. So
Yeah.
like I said, when I was still there, I believe that the school got 100% of the meals tax. And we made the agreement whenever with the town, we get 30% since they lost the meals tax as part of the pilot fees, I believe. And we just took 30% from the town and gave it to them out of our general fund at that time.
Yeah, and that's what the 2018 joint settlement agreement says. It says the county will appropriate and provide funding to the town through the county's general fund revenues, the equivalent of 30% of the meals tax collected. So not that we lost 30%, that all of a sudden the schools got to pay the county's debt to the town. But then we lost all of it because then it just started being applied to the debt service. But the debt service that's being attributed to the schools, first of all, there's no debt in our names. It's all in the county's names. And that debt service that is attributed to the schools, even that number cannot be agreed on, because I've gone down the list and you're looking at the total bond amount. That total bond amount was not all spent on the schools. And there are millions of dollars of school attributed debt that were spent on county projects. So if we want to start trying to tease that apart, then that sounds like a whole other ball of worms to enter into. But I'm happy to set all of that aside as long as we get 100% of the meals tax
Moving forward.
Into a
moving
separate
forward,
account.
into a
Right,
separate account.
into a separate
correct.
CIP account. And that would, I mean, this 1 year of that would basically just reduce down our entire ask for our CIP this year on our county budget. So that would be a way for the Board of Supervisors to see, okay, well, we're reducing basically this part of the budget every year. I understand you're gonna have to make up that money elsewhere because you're still gonna have, you've been using that money for other things. It hasn't just been sitting. But we would like to see it come to where the voters wanted it to come.
So on the collaborative edit with this memorandum for the meals tax, there are just a few areas that I'd like to see some language changes. Under number 1, the purpose, it mentions the 2003 referendum for the purpose of supporting school facilities. I think we need to use the actual language from the actual referendum, which is to be used solely for public school capital improvement projects. So that would be a verbiage change. Then we have in section 4, I highlighted section 2 background, item number 4 was highlighted, pursuant to which 30% of the meals tax revenues collected by the county are distributed to the town. That has to stop, so that needs to come out. I like that this notes that the school board was not a party to these negotiations, and we object to the existence of the 30% being taken from us.
Although we objected to that when it didn't say we weren't aware about this equivalent of the 30%. That's the
right.
county's own
Yeah.
decision to do the equivalent of 30%.
And number 5, the parties recognize the importance of preserving the intent of the 2003 referendum and ensuring that meals tax revenues retained by the county continue to support school facility needs. The word retained needs to come out because it needs to be that the meals tax revenue
Collected, right?
collected. Again, in section 4, first paragraph, it uses that same word retained by Warren County. I'd like to see that removed. In section 5, we again, in the first paragraph, use the word retained by the county. And then number 7, with this non-binding nature of this agreement, I would argue that a referendum is a binding legal agreement. So this needs to be binding. The taxpayers of this community need to know that when they vote willingly to pay an extra tax, that tax money is going to go where it is supposed to be going. It's a basic trust issue. So.
Any other comments, questions on the meals tax?
I would just add at the end of section 3, you have an internal note that probably needs to be struck. Yeah.
Yes, okay.
It just seems like there was an implementation choice somewhere along the way that changed. Instead of paying the equivalent of 30% over the town to meet the obligation the county had with the town, it started being 30% of it is going to go to the town. And that was an implementation choice. It was just something somebody started doing. I don't know if there's a record of it or a decision to change that.
It'd be interesting to know the history, the actual, where it happened, how it happened.
Or do we know that even, is it just that the meals tax has started going just into the county general fund and the county's just
Well,
using?
I'm too new to know that.
I don't know if we know.
You're too new.
Well, the agreement definitely says the equivalent of 30% of the meals tax collected, right? That's just, you just alluded to the fact that that's what they did, and now the schools got all of it. I think in like referencing what Mr. Sandmeyer just said, a straight line is the simplest way to understand this. I mean, the referendum said this, so we should do this. The argument, again, this sounds like I'm talking against my own team, but I don't think that's not accurate. It's all county debt, and there's no schools debt and counties debt.
It's all one pot.
It's all one pot, and I don't think that we're in Texas, there are what's called independent school districts, and they have their own finances. They can do their own bonds. They can do all that kind of stuff. We don't have that here. So there's not a time when the county didn't pay the school's debt. It's always, there's no other entity that can pay the school's
We have no
debt.
way to.
Yeah, you don't have
to
yeah.
make money.
You don't have a way to, there's no other party involved. So if we take the position that, well, we pay your debt, we've always paid it, and we have to pay it, and we always will pay it. I mean, and I think from the people that this was actually a pretty close vote, but it went, the referendum carried.
What was it?
It was 2,045 yay and 1,940 nay. So that's pretty close. But nevertheless, doing this in a straight line makes sense to everybody. And I don't think it cannot make sense. If I say, well, the debt has always been paid by the county. That's not a new thing. So I don't understand how it's used as an argument to say, well, but we're paying your debt. And I made a note somewhere here about asking the question, what did the referendum say? It said solely for public school capital improvement projects. It didn't say pay debt obligations incurred by school construction and related capital projects. So somewhere the rationale was used in an implementation, and the checks started getting written differently. I recognize fully that if we have an obligation to the town, we have to keep meeting. So but it's one pot. It's one pot. It's not a school's pot of money where someone else can pay that debt if we don't. So I think getting this back to the way it was implemented immediately following the agreement is sensible, and recognizing that the board of supervisors now has to say, well, if that's the case, then we've got to deal with it. But back to the consistent theme of the meeting of all of these things is, we got all these roofs now. We've got a fleet of maybe a bus. I mean, there's all these capital projects that are just accumulating and accumulating and accumulating. And it's not, I just, in my opinion, just following the simple language and going back to that, and then dealing with the shortfall, so to speak, that the board of supervisors is going to have to deal with. It's just all the same money, but what it will do is, again, remove annual discretion from yes or no, or the school's going to get some capital money. It just everybody knows it. They voted for it. So why not make it crystal clear? And then let the board of supervisors have the responsibility for, okay, what are the numbers? I've seen some numbers here, maybe 750,000, unaudited, maybe about 800,000, for 25, maybe forecasted at 1.4 million. So, pretty substantial, a problem for me as a supervisor, but I'm not arguing at all, and would never argue that the consistency matter is going to be beneficial over time. Even though, as I've we've all said in our public meetings, we're in a bind, you know, so we have to figure it out. But I don't think it's, I think I'm gonna repeat myself now, so I'm just gonna stop right there. That's,
There was one edit that I had missed in number 5, the transfer. It says shall be transferred on a periodic basis. I think we need to be specific with the periodic basis so that we know when we're might be expecting.
Or like, how's it collected? Is it collected
Yearly or is it?
yearly, quarterly?
Well, in the 2018 joint settlement agreement, there is verbiage where the town requires that the county report the numbers to them and write the check every December. So, I mean, I don't really even care what the date is, just that for us to be able to count on this money, we need to have a date and we can't wait. I'm not trying to be unsympathetic to the county for the whole audit mess situation, but we can't just wait an indefinite, 4 years in between these transfers of money while our roofs are rotting. So I think we need to narrow down and really solidify where that date is. So
Does annual seem reasonable?
annually, is that reasonable for the
Oh,
county, you think?
We've already given
Well, I know you
the
gave it to
town the
county.
30% share. After we gave them accounting that was certified.
So could we get hours at the same time then as the county's getting theirs, or the town is getting theirs? Would that be?
That would be
Fair.
up to, it's not up to me.
Okay.
I'm just,
But you know the number, I guess my question is, would you know the numbers?
I do.
like, And so.
I don't know them off the top of
Sure.
my head.
But you know the numbers by like December when it says, or would that be like a
Oh,
January thing?
Well,
or-
I can tell you that we were tardy this year because the town attorney sent me a notice that we had not paid on time. Once I got the notice, we cut the check that afternoon, but I didn't know what I didn't know at that point.
So what I'm hearing is we just need to be sending a bill every year.
Send a reminder.
That would be
For-
wonderful. Could your attorney talk to Nick?
Well, this agreement that we're referencing says that it'll be said appropriation to be remitted to the town in equal biannual payments to be paid no later than each December 31st and June 30th annually. So maybe that's,
We paid it in February. We were 2 months
okay.
behind.
That's the joint settlement agreement.
Yes.
So we just need to write that exact word into the MOU.
Because if they're already calculating what
Sure.
30% is, those
Right.
2 times a
Yeah.
year, then,
It would make
Might as
sense
well
to
do it
pay
at
the
the
same
same
time you pay the town.
right, because
Current
it's being
number would make-
calculated.
Right.
It makes sense to do it.
And it sounds like we have a generalized consensus from the Board of Supervisors that when we hopefully pass this in our April meeting, that you guys will move forward, because we were really left hanging because we had passed our resolution in October, and I expected it was gonna end up on a county meeting thereafter, and nobody ever wanted to talk about it again, so. I know it's before you were there, but just like a generalized. Yeah. Mrs. Colors is the chair. You'll put this on an agenda if we pass this.
If the consensus of the board is to do that.
I'm supportive.
Okay.
I don't know if it's worth looking into or not, but that 30% pertains to the court. And I would think the commissioner would at least segregate it, but what about Jameson said, and there's not that many outside of the court or in the county that actually pay meals tax. But I'm just thinking that should not, what's paid outside the court or in the county, that 30% should not be going to town.
Yeah, they won't take the 30% out of the ones outside the corridor.
Right.
It's just 30% of what's collected in the
That's what I'm saying.
corridor. So the treasurer ought to have that separated.
Yeah, it may be, and it may actually work that way. I don't know. I'm just saying, it ain't gonna add up to a whole lot of money, but it's probably gonna cost more to find out than the money that may be realized. Just a thought, because I know Dr. Martin doesn't have much to do.
the 30% of what's in the corridor.
I think the town lost the meals tax in the corridor. So then we negotiated with them to give them 30% of the total meals tax to make up for what they
Or
lost.
the equivalent of.
The equivalent, right, the equivalent. But-
That
but I
kept them
think-
from annexing, correct?
Hmm?
That
Yeah,
kept
I
them
mean,
from,
they could have done that,
But
and
he's
then the
saying
county would have lost their meals
there's meals
tax.
tax being collected outside of corridor in the county, and that's our money too. So the treasurer should have a record of how much was collected.
Well, what his point,
I mean, it should, maybe they do, they may already do that.
if it's a restaurant outside corridor that's collecting meals tax, the town would not
Should not.
benefit from 30% of that. It's just from it's in a
Yeah,
corridor
yeah,
because they're
that's
supplying water
clarification.
and sewer to it.
Right.
And if in lieu of annexation to offset some of their cost. That's the only section that they're supposed to be getting 30% of the meals tax.
I understand.
So maybe we ask that question.
Yeah, that would be a good question to ask, because the only numbers that I've ever been able to be provided to me as far as meals tax totals at all, it's just the total for the corridor. So like the 1.1 million, the 1.4 million, that's only apparently in the corridor. So it's just, there's a lot of ambiguity.
Anything else on the meals tax this evening? I'd like to thank you all for joining us. We'll plan to put these things on our April 8th meeting agenda, and then hopefully they will end up on your very next meeting agenda after that.
Go out and dine at a restaurant and spend some money.
Check our meals tax receipt.
Yeah, keep your receipt.
Check the receipt. If we want to take like a couple of minutes while the board of supervisors is leaving, fine, we'll get into our meeting.
Nice party.
You have to keep us separated. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get back on track. Moving on to our consent agenda this evening. Is there a motion?
I move that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Moving on to reports. We have our school resource officer report and update. Apologize. Thank you for
No.
waiting so long this evening for us.
You're fine. So short and sweet this month. I'll let you know that our junior deputy camp that's happening over spring break, we have 20 kids, so we are full. We can't take any more applicants. So that's very exciting. They did a leprechaun hunt last night, so the kids loved that. So lots of good things going there. For the schools for the month of February, let me get to the right paper. We had a total of 25 incidents, which was relatively high for the February timeframe. Last February, we only had 12 incidents. Not sure what happened, but we did get higher numbers this February with our most being assaults, fights, and things of that nature. One thing that I did want to add in about assaults, and I know you guys see it at my end of the year report. So just because there is an assault doesn't mean that we're charging the kids with an assault. It's just that a fight occurred. It was reported to us. It was documented in case the victim and or their parents decide they want to pursue charges, that we have all the information. So just because you see that, it doesn't mean they were these egregious fights. It may just be somebody hit somebody else, classified as an assault, and we just document it on our end in case that other parent calls us and says, what do you mean? It's there. So that was a little higher this year. The other thing, we did see a couple more destruction related offenses. Most of that was just graffiti in the bathrooms. What we do and have been doing with those are if the kids clean it and or the parents pay the cost for it to be cleaned, we're not filing charges. So we're giving them ample amount of time to either come up with the money for property damage offenses and or helping the schools do something different, like painting the halls or whatever they can to help. we then mitigate it so that we're not filing charges. Because the issue with any property related offenses, we can't do a diversion on those. That's the downfall. So that's why we worked with the principals and say, hey, give us a timeline. If it's not done to your approval within X amount of days, we'll do something. But with any property related damage, if there's any monetary amount, we cannot do a diversion. And that means even if it's a kindergarten, they get formally charged. So we try to avoid that. And like what we've done this past year and a half is working with the schools and maintenance to say, how can we get the kids to help fix this and or the parents pay for it and just be done with it. So they're still documented just in case that doesn't happen. And then the sexual related offenses, you'll note they're not on school property. And a lot of times what happens is a kid comes in and tells a counselor. Sometimes those cases are already reported to us, so it may look like new cases, and they're just now retelling their school counselor or teacher about it. So just to be clear, never happened on school property. It might not even be a kid on kid, could be something totally outside. The counselors provide that information to us before we even talk to the kid in those circumstances. We make sure that we haven't previously investigated, but again, we still document that we had that contact and it was reported to us. And again, just for the whole picture, like a better reporting of knowing what's coming in and what we're dealing with on a daily basis, so that you guys can also see that there are things that are coming in too. So for the entire year, we are up to 141 offenses. Of course, with our highest being the middle and high schools, and then LFK is not too far behind that. Most of theirs are threat assessments at LFK. So we're working on trying to get more information about that. And then lastly, I will leave you with, we are working with the safety and security team to hopefully put together a parent forum to be held at one of the schools to go over threat assessments so that parents understand that it's not a derogatory mark. It's how can we better help this kid, because it's not always they're threatening to blow something up or things like that. Sometimes a threat assessment is just their behavior, and how can we help this kid be better and get them the services that they need. So DCJS is pushing out a lot of information about mandatory parent reporting that's going to be coming out next school year. So we are working amongst the safety and security team to try to put together a parent informational where I get up there and talk about what the threat assessments entail, what they look like, and what they're actually not, so that they have a better understanding that it's not something that's just going to be this negative mark on their child's record. So any questions for me?
Thank you.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving into the action agenda this evening, is there anyone here from the public who'd like to speak about the acceptance of Rural Technology Fund grant? Mr. Stefnosky.
Katie Grimley, one of the tech coaches that we have. She works at E. Wilson and Rusty Jeffries. She applied for the Rural Technology Fund grant and she was awarded $2,080. She will use this money to purchase hands-on robotics and coding tools to help teach the computer science standards. These will be integrated into the core subjects like math, science, and our literacy instruction. It's basically just ways to meet those standards within the regular classroom instruction. So I'm here tonight to ask that you accept those funds and allow the superintendent to ask for the appropriation back from the county.
Any questions for Mr. Stefnosky? Is there a motion?
I move that approval be given to accept the Rural Technology Fund grant and that the superintendent be authorized to request that the Warren County Board of Supervisors appropriate $2,080 to technology.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion on that? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you, Mr. Stefnosky.
Thank you.
Next up this evening, we have upgraded security cameras. Is there anyone here to speak on this item? Dr. Costner.
Madam Chair, school board members, Thank you. Tonight I come forth about for, our food service. They are wanting to upgrade the cameras within the, food service line and also, in their, back in their department. This funding for the project will come out of the food service fund. But as it says here, the Warren County Food Service Department is replacing outdated and placing additional new cameras in the school kitchens in an effort to strengthen the workplace safety, accountability, and risk management. In certain situations, access to clear video documentation can be helpful in protecting staff by having objective documentation, prevention of misunderstanding, and supporting fair investigations. They also support the food safety compliance, operation procedures, and overall liability and reduction. Installing and updating properly positioned cameras is a proactive step to protect our employees, students, and the division while maintaining transparent and professional work environment. So I move that the Warren County School Board approve the purchase of upgraded security camera technology, license, and accessories for the food service areas at E. Wilson Morrison, Hilda J. Barber, Leslie Fox Keyser, Rusty Jeffries Elementary, Warren County Middle School, Skyline Middle School, Warren County High School, and Skyline High School in the amount of $26,602.02. This is from E Plus Technology that is under state contract.
Are there any questions for Dr. Costner? Would anyone like to make that motion?
I move the Warren County School Board approve the purchase of upgraded security camera technology, licenses and accessories for the food service areas at E. Wilson Morrison, Hilda J. Barber, Leslie Fox Kaiser, Rusty Jeffries Elementary, Warren County Middle, Skyline Middle, Warren County High, and Skyline High in the amount of $26,602.02 from E Plus Technology, Inc. through Virginia State Contract WCPS 5058.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you, Dr. Costner.
Thank you.
Next up this evening, we have an MOA with Salvation Army Red Shield Youth Center of Front Royal. Is there anyone here from the public to speak on this? Dr. Costner, is that you as well?
Again, Madam Chair, board members, thank you. This is a little bit of a deja vu for some of you all, just to let you know. Back in November, the school board did approve the Red Shield MOA. That MOA that we approved was sent back to the director who had submitted it to us for approval. The director then submitted it to her board. Her board did not approve. So therefore, through discussions, and it's been a long and lengthy discussion, that was back in December 3rd, January the 30th, then back on February the 12th, I had a Zoom meeting with their board, one of their board members, to discuss the MOA. And so the next step is they submitted a new MOA for this year. This was received on February 26th. And one of the things that they added or changed is they added the clause, because the Red Shield Youth Center of Front Royal operates within Warren County Public Schools facilities and receives funding through the 21st Century Grant Learning. No, excuse me, I'm reading the wrong one. I apologize. I'm reading the old one. I've got to go back to my corrected notes. The updated MOU, the paragraph that they added, and I do apologize for reading the first one we signed. I apologize. The updated one says, when parents or guardians enroll their child in the Red Shield Youth Center, they acknowledge and understand that the after-school program is operated by the Salvation Army and not by Warren County Public Schools. Accordingly, families recognize that the program operates under the Salvation Army's missions, policies, and values as administered in full accordance with its established standards, procedures, and guidelines. That they added that disclaimer there. So to see that their board did approve that disclaimer with the new MOU. And just to give you a little bit of brief background on the Red Shield, they do serve 60 students. It is at no charge to the parents. So they do offer that after school program at E. Wilson Morrison, and then they offer a summer program. So that's why I do bring this to you tonight I move that the approval be given to the superintendent to sign the memorandum of agreement between Salvation Army Red Shield Youth Center of Front Royal and the Warren County Public Schools.
Are there questions for Dr. Costner? Is there a motion?
I move approval be given for the superintendent to sign the memorandum of agreement between Salvation Army Red Shield Youth Center of Front Royal and Warren County Public Schools.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that?
This discussion is just, I mean, more for the two board members, just where this all came from. When this first came up, I guess we've been doing this for years, is the Salvation Army is a religion. It's an actual religion. And we're public schools, we can't have that in there. So we want to, we said we have to make sure, because it says their purpose is to become active, productive members of their churches, families, and communities. That's not our mission. So we want to make sure there was some divide in there that everyone knew what was going on. So that's where where it all came from.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Costner. Next up this evening, we have approval of an additional position. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on that besides Ms. Drake?
Thank you. Did update this to position realignment because I am asking to dissolve a position at the same time. So that way there's no fiscal impact to the fiscal year. In our budget proposal, we did request a human resource and communications specialist for the next year. We were going to dissolve the receptionist position, the administrative assistant to the human resource director would then cover that position. Going through some realignment and looking at kind of our operational needs and the needs for now, especially since we'll be hiring and bringing substitutes back in. That communications piece is going to also be extremely helpful. We would like to add that position now to this fiscal year, dissolve the administrative assistant to human resources, and add back in the receptionist because we still have to have somebody welcoming and greeting our employees. So not necessarily an additional impact. There is no fiscal impact because we'll use the dissolved salaries to compensate for it. Because there is a increase for the salary, it would be on the specialist scale versus the administrative assistant scale. So there is a little bit of a difference there.
Questions for Ms. Drake? Is there a motion?
I move that the Warren County School Board approve the position realignment of human resources and communication specialist position for the fiscal year 26 school year, effective immediately, funded through a dissolved position salary.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you. Next up, we have the first reading of GAA and GAA-R. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on this? Ms. Drake.
Good evening. So I've gotten really good at just redlining policies and starting from scratch. I have a hard time with all of the items being added to cherry pick the sentences we want to keep. So it's just cleaner for me. Hopefully it's a little bit cleaner for you, not trying to hide what, has been changed. It's just, there's a lot that we're adding to this. So the regulation would be new, although we don't bring regulations usually forward to the board because they're approved through the superintendent. It does complement the policy. It gives it more detail on what we'll be talking to our staff about for their attendance and our absent management. So it won't be here for the second reading, but it does complement the policy to help a little bit of an understanding of the expectations that we'll have for attendance. Right now, we just don't have an attendance policy at all, a regulation. This will help clarify, for example, if somebody has 3 no-call, no-shows, they have voluntarily resigned unless, something has happened where then obviously we would reconsider that if, for example, they were hospitalized, which would be horrible. Licensed professional staff still would have their due processes. So it's not taking away from that either. But right now we just don't have any of those guidances for tardies and things of the early departures to be able to really hold people accountable through regulations. So again, it just complements the revised GAA policy for this first reading. So I would like to retitle it because it's not just staff schedules that staff time schedules that we're talking about. We were talking about overtime, compensatory time, and work schedules for both exempt and non-exempt employees. A lot of our policies talk about professional staff and support staff. We're labeled through the Fair Labor Standard Act, and so it is a little bit easier as well. It's on the bottom of our pay scales. Some of the major changes within the policy outside of being a little bit more detailed and outlined is I am looking to change the work week definition. So right now it's Monday through Sunday. It's maybe more of a preference looking at that, athletic events that would take place on a Saturday. So traditionally it is Sunday through Saturday. Anything over 40 hours would then for non-exempt employees constitute as overtime or that comp time or compensatory time. So that is one of the changes in there as well. Really labeling out what an exempt employee is along with their work schedule. There is kind of this misconception that a exempt employee, so that would be your teachers was just a good example, your licensed professional staff, your supervisors, directors, things of that. It does talk about their hours. It is a minimum of 7.5. That doesn't mean 7.5 is the workday, because we all know that there are expectations afterwards, such as parent-teacher conferences maybe, or when somebody's meeting, doing grading. There's all sorts of things that still have to take place outside of those 7.5 hours that are scheduled. So just want to be clear on that. And that principals do have the ability to adjust staff schedules to ensure adequate supervision. So bus duty would be a good example. So just kind of laying that out there, and also really identifying that planning time. This is just a copy and paste from Virginia State Code on planning time that we do get for elementary and our secondary schools. We are implementing a new time and attendance system. If it fails, then we will still use paper. The idea is to get out of that. And so when we talk about our non-exempt employees, we are going to be moving forward with this. We're implementing this now. We'll be doing training next week with our first level approvers, second level approvers for timesheets. We're really excited about this. But for our non-exempt employees, we will need them to clock in and out. Anything over 40 hours, they would get time and a half. That's already in our existing policy, but it is just putting that in there. I do have one change that I do need to make in here, and it's under the non-exempt employees timekeeping. I did use the word coaching, and I should not use that. We do have induction coaches. We have other types of coaches, but specific to athletic coaches, they would not clock in and out. They would not clock in and out to be coaches. So I just think that word could be a little confusing. And as I read it for, I don't know, probably the 100th time, I was like, maybe I should take this out. So I will make that revision on here as well. Just kind of going page by page with my highlights. Overtime pay, I will say, although we would be required to pay overtime pay, we have to. We would encourage our employees to use the compensatory time or their comp time. We would have a max accrual of 240 hours, which is about 240 hours of compensatory time, or about 160 hours of overtime worked. This is Fair Labor Standard Act guidance. We would not allow a carryover, because next year they would get a higher rate of pay, and we don't want to pay them at the higher rate of the overtime. We want to settle at the end of the fiscal year. But ideally, we're using that comp time when available, adding some provisions in here based off operational needs for that comp time. So if you have a lot of comp time build up next week for spring break, like, no, probably shouldn't do that. I don't know that we can approve that. Still has to go through the approval process. So just saying that, there has to be the staffing needs, operational needs met. And then there is a combination of roles. So I'll give an example. For the combined non-exempt roles, if I am an instructional assistant and then I am working ticketing for athletic events, that is a paid part-time position. It's under the same EIN. We still have to compensate them for them, but it's two different rate of pays. So if they go over 40 hours, we have to take the combined rate to then pay that overtime. So
We're going to see if our payroll system will do that for us. So it's not manual, and just hopefully don't get into those situations, but we do have to. And then monitoring and record keeping, again, this is all in coordination within the Human Resource Department and Finance Department for payroll processes. So those are kind of the more detailed highlighted versions of the first reading for the policy. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we'll make note of the word coaching because I don't want that to be misleading.
Okay. Next, we have the first reading of GCE. Anyone else who would like to speak on that? Ms. Drake.
All right. A little announcement with this. It will be on our website soon, if not already. April 4th. So we're getting ready to talk about substitutes, and this policy is related to that. But April 14th, sorry, I kind of looked back. I don't know if it's there. We just sent it to Doug today. April 14th from 4:30 to 6:30 p.m. at Warren County High School. We have an open house for our substitutes to do on-the-spot interviews, offers, backgrounds. So anybody who has applied, this is a great way for us to do all of our interviews. Every school is bringing one person, so we'll have several people to interview. They can do the application on the spot. Very excited about that. But because we are bringing them in-house, we do have to review our policy, because at the time it just said substitute teachers. It did not actually talk about our substitutes. That policy had been retired. So of course, we redlined the whole thing and rewrote it to part-time and substitute staff employment. And so this again is just the classification and the timekeeping expectations. The substitutes are paid at an hourly rate. We already have timesheets that are approved and built in for part-time rates, but we don't talk just about substitute. We talk about temporarily employed teachers, our part-time homebound, summer school teachers. It's all just kind of listed in here with the expectations per. Any questions? Oh, I do have one note, sorry. We do have in here that our substitutes would be required to work a minimum of 2 shifts per month within a school. So if somebody takes, a half day, that could be 4 days. ESS, who we currently are contracting with, does require 4. So we have done a minimum of 2, and we did put in here that if they have a circumstance or they have some vacation planned, again, this is supposed to be a flexible position. We would obviously look through that to approve it or deny for whatever reason, but want to give them that opportunity in there. So, but it is 2 full days that we would be asking them to work per month.
Questions for Ms. Drake? Thank you. Okay, moving into our work session item for this evening. This is FY27 budget amendment considerations. Before we get into that, I guess I would just like to remind everyone that our board has an approved budget at the moment. Nothing with this discussion is going to change that. We're not voting on any amendments. We're actually still waiting for the supervisors to get their budget in line. I know Dr. Wright just asked, sort of for transparency's sake, what some changes might look like, but again, we have our budget approved and we're waiting to hear from the supervisors right now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an opportunity for, I know I provided this to you in the Friday memo, but more so to update the public and just to hear any discussion regarding some budget amendment considerations. And the word considerations is there purposely because, as Dr. Pence said, our board has adopted a budget and proposed that to the Board of Supervisors. And we are looking forward to hearing Dr. Martin's proposal tomorrow and the funding for all the departments, but we'll be paying a lot of attention to what is in store for the school. So in anticipation of some shortfalls that the Dr. Martin and the Board of Supervisors are foreseeing in their budgets, we were asked to see what it would look like to make a few changes which are reflected in this consideration document. So our team met and worked with Mr. Ballantyne to crunch the numbers, and then these have been provided and have gone back and forth with Dr. Martin a few times. So this is what we have. So I think the biggest thing that you will see right off the top is we took the 4% plus step, which was approved in our adopted budget, and we modified that down to a 3% plus step. And you see that reflected in our current positions as a savings of 870,000 there with a footnote provided. You also see as far as changes, the other big change would be the proposed absorbed positions. It's not a big change, but it's actually shows an increase because as we decrease the salaries, you would actually see a slight increase in anything that we had reduced. So just sort of a weird thing to look at, and it's like, why is this an increase if we're reducing? So because that showed where we were cutting, it actually shows a small increase there of $2,000. If you come on down to the non-labor portion, there was not a whole lot to reduce there, so you did see just a small reduction of the 216,000. But the major portion of this is really seen at the CIP level. And that footnote is number 5, which is some potential one-time state flexible spending of 1.2 million. So that would enable us to, and just kind of putting aside the conversations that we had tonight. So that 1.2 million would give us a lot of capacity to take on some of our urgent CIP needs. And we could own that right at the beginning of the year once we receive the money with July 1. So as long as that seems very likely to happen based on conversations with the state and the conversations that we have had, that is proposed and seems very likely to happen. Also, the 3% seems very likely to happen in terms of the state funding. So that's why we put that in there. It's also what the county is proposing for their employees. So the 3% plus step for the schools, plus I think, if we can get this 1.2 million, that would allow the county not to give us that portion of CIP, and we could still be okay in terms of our CIP projects. That brings our total budget as far as our total county funding increased for this year, which was 7.2, down to 5.5, which is what we hope to see in tomorrow's budget presentation. We would like to see the 7.2, but I think, and speaking to Mr. Ballantyne, if we do get the 1.2 million in flexible funding, we should be okay. I think the biggest concern might be with the raises and the insurance. So the insurance is still, we have worked those through at 3%, and we've looked at what it would look like in terms of our employees. I know Ms. Drake ran the scenarios, and there were a couple of tiers that would need to be adjusted and contributed to a little bit more from the employer in order to make those employees that choose that tier still be able to see a noticeable raise, and it wouldn't all go to the insurance. So without those two exceptions, I think everything else with this amendment consideration, I feel pretty good about it, honestly. I would feel better about the other, but I don't feel too upset or losing any sleep over this proposal if this is what ends up happening. If it goes less than that, I would have more concerns. So I just wanted to bring that to the board and to the public and make sure that folks know this is the considerations that we were asked to share, and the 5.5 increase is where we landed, and we'll wait and see what's in the budget for tomorrow.
Questions, comments?
Oh, a comment that, something I want to bring up that from our last conversation we had about this. You know, the 3% generally that's given to employees is sort of a cost of living increase, right? Isn't that what's sort of considered? It's not a raise in a sense. It's a raise that it's a cost of living raise. And obviously, and the insurance goes up every year. Well, that's a cost of living raise. And there was just some discussion from some of the folks that were at the meeting last time about, well, if our insurance rate goes up, our cost of living amount that we got just got wiped away. Well, that was sort of the reason it was given to you. I mean, it sounds kind of strange that I'm saying that, but the reason we do the cost of living is because things go up, including insurance is one of those things that goes up. So sometimes I've heard people saying like, well, we should be able to save that money, and that's money that we should be able to use for something else. The reality of life is everything goes up, and that's just part of it. So just for everyone that's listening, that's an important thing to know, that the reason we give the 3% is for the cost of living increases. And our health insurance, yes, it went up more than 3%, but that's part of the angle too. So it's not meant to be that you necessarily have more money in your bank account. It's just, you hope you don't have less money in your bank account.
Right. And I think we're good with the exception of those two tiers as far as what those would need to be addressed, which we would already looking at those. And again, that's under our current healthcare, which we have the bid out, and speaking to Ms. Drake, she's been getting a lot of inquiries and questions from the folks that are interested. So look forward to bringing some of that information to you very soon.
And again, just as Dr. Pence mentioned at the beginning, our budget is what it is. We voted on it, and this is just kind of pencil on the napkin kind of concepts of what it is, that we'll then have to make a decision about whether these are the things that come and go. As a board, we'll have to make those decisions at a later date, depending on what happens tomorrow night, right?
Correct. And we'll see. Again, that's a proposal tomorrow, and then I think the Board of Supervisors will then have an opportunity to look at the entire budget, of which we're a portion of, a very large portion of, but we are a big portion of that budget. And then once they adopt it, then depending on where this number ends up, we will have to come back together and figure some things out. Hopefully it stays right there.
Yeah, well, because I think we have to be really careful that if we just end up covering the cost of living, we've done a lot of really hard work to get our employee salaries to be up and competitive. And if we start to backslide and get left behind by the other counties that are giving a higher percent increase, then we're negating all the hard work that we're trying to do to catch up. So see it both ways, and we'll just see where the county falls, I guess. Okay. If I can get a motion to go into closed session, please.
Motion is made that this open public meeting of the Warren County School Board become a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2-3711. The school board desires to discuss the following matter in a closed meeting. Section 2.2-3711A1, discussion, consideration, or interviews of prospective candidates for employment, assignment, appointment, promotion, performance, demotion, salaries, disciplining, or resignation of employees of the school board, specifically the personnel report and the personnel report addendum.
Is there a second?
I second it.
Ms. Stelzel, could you do roll call, please?
Aye.
Ms. Jones.
Aye. Aye.
Mr. McFadden.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Salins, could you read us out, please?
According to the votes recorded by the clerk, the School Board of Warren County does hereby certify that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the school board.
Is there a second?
Second it.
Ms. Stelzel, could you do roll call, please?
Ms. Salins.
Aye.
Mr. McFadden.
Aye.
Dr. Pence.
Aye.
Ms. Jones.
Aye.
Mr. Klein.
Aye.
Is there a motion on the personnel report and personnel report addendum? Feel like
Are you waiting on me?
Yes, wait on somebody. Anybody?
At something else.
I move that the March 18th, 2026 personnel report and personnel report addendum be approved as presented.
Is there a second? A
Second.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Anything else this evening? Just a quick reminder, we'll be on spring break. And so we will meet on April 8th at the Government Center at 6 p.m. And we're adjourned.
That's all of our state